Welcome to the rabbit hole. We're going to talk about tarot today and all of the things that comes with it, where it originated from, and different points of view on it, because we all know that tarot is in, some religion, stuff like that. It's a no-no. Other people swear by it, right? And I think it's very interesting where it did come from and why it is the way it is now. So I was doing a little bit of research on it last night and this morning, and I came across some of the history that I didn't had no idea about. The tarot that we know was started in the 1430s, and it actually started, same as Lenormand, as a card game, like bridge. That's where it came from. So, and then, eventually along the way, people started using it for predicting the future and things like that. But it was actually derived from the Egyptians, and then it was changed into the card game that resembles bridge, and then it turned into what we know it as today because of the randomness of the cards and the way that we pull them and stuff like that. Um, the other thing about tarot is if you actually take a deck and you look at it, you can follow it very closely with a lot of religion because of when it was birthed into what it is now. They based it off of, or it derived from a lot of the religious aspects of what was going on in the time. So if you were to go through the major arcana, you can see the Empress is kind of like Mother Mary. We talk about the Hermit, for instance. This is when Jesus would have went into the cave and then came back to life, right? So there's a lot of very religious aspects in the tarot, and I was actually talking with one of you last night. I'm not gonna say names, but we were talking about reading it in that way and how it like it comes through, right? Because if you're looking at all like the aces, for instance, or the Four of Cups, they all have this hand that is coming in as an offering. And even with the way that I learned it, is that's the hand of God offering you either a new beginning or, something fresh, something new, something exciting. It's just a matter of, are we going to see it? Are we going to have faith in this new thing, right? Are we going to pay attention to the signs? So there's a lot of correlation between what we have been taught, what we have been taught to fear, and the spiritual world. It's all kind of bundled into one. And the thing that kind of blows my mind is because of where it comes from and how closely it resembles a lot of the stories in the Bible. Why were we taught to fear it? That is something that has been in the back of my mind for quite a while, especially if it was originally a card game. Where along the lines were we taught to fear tarot? And, like we have the original Rider-Waite deck, and that's probably like the most famous deck out of them all. And that's where everything was kind of, the inspiration for all the new decks came from. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on that part of it, how you interpret, like where you think that like along the way we were taught to fear the tarot, right? And yeah, I just want to hear all the things and your perspectives of it because I think we have a wealth of different opinions and stuff in here too. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. Yeah. Yeah, Marie.
Um, I was raised Catholic. I was very active in the Catholic religion just about my entire life. Um, the Catholic Church is very much about control, and they control a lot through fear. You know, this is gonna, if you do this, you're gonna burn in hell. You do this, you're the devil, you're gonna do this. So I think what I've always found interesting is it's okay in the Bible to have the story where there's a seer in it. You know, I can finally die. I've now seen God's promise resolved whenever the guy sees Jesus for the first time as a baby. I don't know the prophet's name. That's okay, but
Hmm.
yeah, we don't approve of this. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. That is really interesting that, they have that in there. And it makes me wonder what about it was scary? Like why was I guess we'll maybe never know. But who was the first person that made it scary to begin with is what I'm curious about and why. I think a lot of that stuff has been buried in history, and we have so many forms of divination. But I want to, like, to me personally, I feel like tarot is one of the number one most feared things that are out there, along with, and I don't even mess with these, but the Ouija board, right? I don't mess with the Ouija board. But you don't hear a whole lot about like the crystal balls and things, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I had a thought and I lost it already.
it's Sunday, it's okay. Yeah. And like Lenormand, for instance, it's a whole different way of reading cards, but that also started off as a board game and our regular playing cards, right? Those are actually the Book of Life, and it was hidden in plain sight. So, to me, all of these things, most of them stem back to the Egyptians. So, yeah, Marie.
I'm wondering if it didn't start because something was predicted bad and came true.
Oh, yeah,
And then they're like, that has to be evil.
I would not doubt that. Hmm.
That's the thought that slipped away.
Well, that would make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
And it doesn't help. I think I'm a big NCIS fan, so I think I saw that NCIS. But I think there was like the tarot killer, and every time they killed someone, they had a tarot card or something. That feeds into that fear also.
yeah, I definitely believe that. And even just out in regular culture, um, there are people out there that are still just preying on others for their money. And so they give those scary readings. They don't care. They think it's some people think it's their due diligence to tell you all of the scary things. Um, the other thing that I wonder about that too is like how in tuned are these people, first of all? Because I feel like if you're fear mongering, you're probably not the real deal of the love and light sort of thing, right? Um, and where they're deriving their information off of, is it solely the cards? Is it because they're picking up on somebody else's um energy, right? It always made me wonder, and that's where a lot of us, tarot card readers and intuitives and stuff, I think get a really bad name because there are people out there that'll $6 a minute, give me money in my pocket, um, or it's I'm going to tell you how and when you're going to die, which I've gone over this 1,001 times. You know what? Why even give somebody that information? Because they're not going to know when they do anyways. Like what's the purpose of that, I guess. So I very much dislike the stereotype and stigma that is around people that do intuitive work because those of us that actually are real and that give a crap, right? We're not in it for any of that. There's nothing scary about it. And you know what? If I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell because I made a difference while I was here. Like, I'm okay with that. And it's kind of sad. This stuff is coming into our awareness more and more as we move through more of the twos in numerology, right? And the way the planets are shifting and just how the collective is waking up. We're becoming more in tune with the intuitive work, and we're finding out that there's more and more substance to it, especially with the quantum physics and things too. We're finding stuff, quantum entanglement. There is another gosh, I can't think of what the DNA thing is that they're doing. I just seen it. But it's talking about environmental things, right? But also it ties in with like the quantum stuff that is happening and how we are tapping in. So there's becoming like scientific proof behind all of this stuff, but bringing it back around, people are finding out that the stuff is actually really helpful. And I think people are turning more back. I'm, correct in my words. Turning back more.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't finished my coffee yet. We're turning back more towards the spiritual sense of stuff and the answers that we can get because a lot of us are searching for answers, right? We want something that people can tell us that we have been searching for forever, but no medical person can tell us. It's we're taught to have faith, which can be extremely hard to do when you're still searching for answers and you're not getting them. And I think sitting across from somebody else, whether they have a tarot deck in their hand, whether they have the crystal ball, whatever, if they're just sitting there, right? Somebody being like, hey, is this what's going on with you? This is what I'm getting through. And the other person, like, just staring like a deer in the headlights at you, like, oh my God, you actually just pulled that out of thin air. And that gives us a lot more faith when we start getting answers that way, when there's no concrete evidence, I guess I would say, that we're going to find any like out in the medical world or just out in general. So it's another source I feel like for people to really tune in and like tap more into faith that there is something more because I honestly feel like that is what drives a lot of people. I mean, even with the churches, you look at it, why do we go? To be good people because we don't want to go to hell, right? Um, and to have faith in something because without it, we're kind of just wanderers wandering around the earth. And it does have its place, right? Because if you don't believe in anything, what's the point of being good? That's kind of how I feel about it. I I would think that there would be a lot of people that are just running around, running amok, doing whatever they want, because what's the difference, you know? But I do feel like there is value in receiving information from an unseen source, whether it be for yourself with the tarot cards, reading, because they are so powerful. Anybody that has taken my tarot course, you know that you've tapped into that energy and being able to read for somebody else, being able to read for yourself, it's so helpful. And maybe we're all just really good at reading pictures. I don't know. We're very creative. We're a good creative bunch that's really good at psychology. I don't know. I don't really care, but it makes a difference in all of our lives. So whichever way it works, I'm good with it. It makes me happy. Yeah, Marie.
Kim has, and I like what she typed here in the messages. I don't know if you looked at it yet.
Let me see. Kim, definitely about people keeping people under control and afraid of their own divinity and manifestation abilities. People in power use astrology all the time to help make decisions. Yes, numerology too. Yeah, Marie.
So what I was going to say is, okay, so I clean the church rectory every other weekend.
Mhm.
And before I start, I always sit down with the priest and we have such fabulous conversations. For me, have left the church. He and I really get into some interesting things. But Ash Wednesday is this week. I said, is Ash Wednesday coming up? He says, Marie, you know that. And we got into the discussion how, and this freaks out my sister. So much of the Catholic Church is based off of pagan holidays. Okay,
Mm,
we have the winter solstice, and then Jesus is born.
mhm.
Okay, and then so he's the light. He's bringing the light. Okay, and now summer solstice, spring solstice is going to happen, and then it's going to be Easter. But he explained how, okay, Easter is always based off of the first full moon of the year. Okay. And
Okay.
let me think of how he said this. Now, we just had the new moon,
Mhm.
and I think Easter is after the first full moon, is the Sunday after the first full moon of spring.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So even the church uses astrology. You know, the whole story of the three wise men. following the star, you know. So yeah, the church uses, I think maybe it's just they can use it, but we can't, you know. It would give us power that they don't want us to have.
I agree.
I have even heard that the Virgin Mary is actually the constellation Virgo.
I haven't heard that, but
I just got the
Um,
chills from that one. That's interesting.
yeah, I think I have talked to you about this guy, Kayla. Jordan something. I can't think of his last name now. But he goes into about like what the laws are and how it's all about maritime law and what all that means. And then he also talks about astrology and how that plays into religion and how we can't really take the Bible as literal. And so when he was saying like if Jesus was born from the Virgin Mary, chances are that somebody, right, who probably wasn't named Jesus, was born in an area that happened to be under the constellation of Virgo.
That would make sense.
But it was really it's really interesting. I'll post a link to some of his stuff in the comments, but yeah, I truly believe that the reason why religion has a problem with us looking into any of that or questioning any of that is because it would be a complete loss of control. And, because you have to have a priest talk to God. You can't talk to God, right?
Right.
You have to have a pope decide things. And I don't know, even when I was a little kid, I always thought there's something not right about this because my grandma was very, very religious. And I had to take a class in order to get married in the Catholic Church. And they hated me in that class because I questioned everything. Why would we have to do this? Why would we have to do that? Why would God even care about that? And yeah, I think a lot of it has to
they
do
allowed you to
with
get married.
fear mongering. They did not want me to get married. And I will say the priest, he was right. I should not have gotten married to him. But I just always had a problem about going to church, especially the money thing. You pass around this golden plate and you're made to feel shame if you don't put anything in there. You didn't fill up the envelope, you didn't fill up the envelope. And my dad will always tell the story that my grandmother actually baptized me in her kitchen sink because they would not baptize me in the church because they told my dad he hadn't given enough to the church and he told them
Wow.
to shove it. And so my grandma baptized me in her kitchen sink. But um that stuck with me. I just thought if you cared, and my dad had said this to the priest at the time, he's like, if you really believed that if this baby died and was going to go to limbo, you'd be out on the street baptizing every little child you could find.
Damn right.
It wouldn't be about the money. And I just have always felt it's about greed, it's about power, it's about control and manipulation. And I have always been very turned off about it. Now, I don't think that going to church is a bad thing. If you find peace there and you find some kind of spirituality and you feel a connection to God while you're there, great. But I think a lot of people turn that into like a power struggle. And I love tarot. I think tarot is amazing. I love Oracle. I love the numerology because it's so spot on. Um, but like somebody like Kayla, she would have been burned at the stake, like she would have been considered a witch.
I would have been burned a long time ago. And I was told that I was waterboarded back during the witch trials till I died because I wouldn't give up information. So makes sense.
And I think about how much healing I've received from Kayla. Just getting those readings done. I just had a conversation with a lady that I had just met. I had a thing going on with my bank account, and I called the bank, and I was talking to this individual, and we just happened to bring up readings, right? And I mentioned Kayla, and I just said, "Oh my gosh, it's so healing." And it is. I feel like you get more out of it with a 10, like even with a 10-minute session than what you can out of, 5 years of therapy about just, talking about the same things over and over again because it puts the control back in your own lap. It
That's
says, hey,
true.
you do have intuition. You're just not listening to it. And yeah, you have been getting the signs. You just haven't been paying attention. So I think it's really about putting the control into your own hands again. And, I think certain people don't like that. That's my 2 cents.
Um,
I agree.
I'd like to share something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, when I was gone, we rented a house and something went wrong, and the maintenance person came and he saw my tarot cards laying on the dresser.
Yeah.
And he looked where the leak was, and then he was leaving. He said, "Oh, I see you have tarot cards." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just learning." And it turns out he was in the seminary for 11 years, Catholic, and or what do they call it? I don't know what they call it. Not seminary. Anyway, he was training to be a priest for 11 years, still hardcore Catholic, and he uses the tarot cards.
Oh my gosh,
And we
that's
just had
amazing.
amazing conversations. It was
That's
so
so good.
awesome. Yeah, he was
I love it.
just amazing. We talked like a half an hour about spirituality and
Yeah,
meditation, and yeah, it
right.
was really cool.
I love that. That's so great. And I love people that are like
Hmm.
open-minded because I think a lot of people think that, nope, I only have to have my one faith, right? This is it. There's nothing else. If there's anything else, then it's wrong. But I don't
Hmm.
why can't we have both, right? You can still believe in this thing over here and incorporate all the wonderful things of this over here and make your own ordeal. Because if you think about like spiritual healers, or we think about life coaches, or even what I do with numerology, the overlap between religion, what I do, and psychology are so closely intertwined when we're talking about mindfulness and meditation. Again, it's the same thing you would learn when you're going to a therapist, right? If you're talking
Hmm.
about what you believe in, whether it be like a higher power, the universe, God, or anything like that, right? It's okay to still believe in what you believe in because all of us, even in spirituality, believe that there's something else, right? At the very core of everything, it all comes back to one belief. Is there something more? Whichever way you want to
Hmm.
look at it, whether you have a physical God, whether you say, some places say you're going back to the earth, right? It's all the same thing at the core. It's all we're going somewhere. There's got to be more to life than just this. We can't just come here and then leave, right? It's so
Well, a lot of people believe that you can, or yeah,
mhm,
there's a lot of belief that there isn't more.
right. And I could see that
Yeah.
too, because we don't know. And even myself,
Hmm.
I question it because I still have a very scientific oriented mind where, yeah, I can talk to somebody's loved one, right? I have felt them sit next to me.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have, I mean, all these messages and stuff that comes through, but then I question it still and say, okay, well, am I just tapping into an imprint of energy? Am I tapping into like the circuit board, right, of energy? And that's just what's coming through where I'm just pulling things in. You know what I mean? Is there really something else? Or is that just something that is pre-designed in humanity where we're able to pick those things up just like animals pick up on magnetic poles of the earth, and that's why they are migrating, right? So we have memory, and then we have magnetic poles, and we obviously have energy. You can't dispute that. I mean, I'm sitting on my laptop right now, and energy is connecting me to the internet, and we cannot see it, right? So does our brains function like the internet, where we're just getting a download from a massive hub somewhere, Like that's all the things. I still question it. I've had all these amazing experiences. They have all been, I've had some really dead on the nose experiences. I still don't know how it works. I don't know where this stuff is coming from, right? You just know it's there. And it's because it's so subtle. It seems like it's your own thoughts. kind of like the Hunger Games, where they press the button and you're hearing this stuff. Well, that's kind of how it feels like in your head. It feels like it's all the same thoughts as your own. So it makes you question everything. And I think that's why people have such a hard time tapping in. And that's why things like tarot are extremely useful for that stuff because you now have a visualization of saying, nope, this isn't just your brain, right? This isn't just you, your inner dialogue talking to yourself. This is what's actually happening. And so it gives you a lot more faith, but being able to incorporate everything, and I want the world to be able to move to a place of non-judgment, not a place of if you believe in this, you're wrong, but a place of we're all in the same damn boat. Every single one of us, we're just trying to get through our days. We are just trying to have faith that there's something more. We're trying to raise our kids. We're trying to be good people, right? I want us all to get on the same page of that because the basis of everything that we do is all the same. Be a good person.
I want to
Don't.
mention too
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
is per Catholicism in particular, just because I'm familiar with that. My grandma was very, very Catholic. My dad was raised Catholic. And anytime we stayed at my grandma's, we went to church with my grandma. And, you know, everybody makes fun of all like this woo-woo stuff that we talk about. But I'll tell you what, and I'm not bashing Catholics or anything. They have a lot of woo-woo stuff going on.
The altar.
I mean, they really do. I mean, I look at my grandma, all the stuff that she would do with us. Like my brother was having some financial problems, and he'd go to my grandma, I don't know what to do here. Here, have a holy grape. It was a grape soaked in booze. Or you want to sell your house, let's bury a statue of Saint whoever in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like she always had her rosaries on her. And she always, had some kind of a little token or trinket that was considered holy. She had holy water all over her house. People think it's weird to have moon water, but she had holy water all over her house
Mm-hmm.
in different statues and all these different things that really aren't much different than what the spiritual community are into, other than it's just a different look to it,
Right.
really.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. Marie?
I took a pagan to mass with me once. And we laughed. I said, "So, what did you think?" She says, "That is the most pagan thing I ever attended." She said, "From the altar,
I was just thinking the altar, yeah.
candles,
Yep.
to incense." She says, "That's all pagan. It's all taken from the pagan way, you know." She, yeah, she was quite surprised. I never saw it that way until she pointed it out, but it's true.
It is. Yeah. I'm sure you guys have all seen it, but that meme that was going around about how in some religions, like you got to go drink the blood of Christ and you eat the
Body.
yeah. And how it's so similar to somebody sacrificing, doing a sacrifice and you drinking the literal blood, right? In order to purify yourself or how, whatever it is, but it ties in so closely with the basis of all of this stuff. And then it's like, I don't judge anybody either because it's really hard to not be judgmental when you are very taught a very specific way of things, right? Because it's scary. We all do it, right? Something's different. We're going to judge it. It is what it is. But having somebody judge you for having your little altar that's got crystals and stones all over it, coming from like that sort of thing, what I questioned was why are they drinking blood? That's the stuff that we see in like scary movies, right? So to have somebody move into that and not question it at all and just blind faith, right? I'm a questioner. I'll never understand it. I question everything. I always will. I'm one of those people where it's like, okay, if space is endless, everything is always contained in something else. How can space be endless? Like I just can't wrap my head around it, right? But that goes back to what I was saying is everything is so intertwined and so closely related. I feel like the difference between spirituality and organized religion and the tarot and all of that stuff is really how accepting the community is. In my perspective, what I have experienced, right? There is no shame. If you want to sit in the middle of a room with a group of girls and scream and cry and tell your most intimate things, right? You're not going to get shamed by anybody. We're all going to be there to support you and be like, oh shit, I've gone through that too. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get it off of our chest. We're not going to go to hell for speaking about this, right? That is the difference, I feel like, because if we have impure thoughts, well, guess what? We all do. It's part of being human. It's not a sin, it's part of being human and learning how to deal and cope with, right? Instead of stuffing down. And that's a lot of what the spiritual community is about is let's teach you how to cope with instead of ignore and be in fear. You've had horrible things happen to you. Let's talk about it and let's work through it. Let's release that stuff, right? You don't need to carry that on your shoulders. And yes, they have confession in organized religion, and that's great, right? Everybody needs to go and confess their stuff. You need to go talk about it. I feel like the spiritual community though is just a lot more open. There's a lot more you can share. That's why I think I love it so much, is that we can be human. We can be, no matter what happens, we can be human. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk to somebody that's talking about being the Zodiac killer, right? You know, you can go about your merry way. I want to deal with you. Set your boundaries, right? But I mean, all of the other stuff that comes along with it, we're all, a lot of us, we don't know it, but we're on the same journey. We've had this, like a lot of the same things, not the same, but very similar things happen. And according to numerology, there's a reason why we have these people placed in front of us, and I can see it in the charts, and why you are connected because you are learning something from them. And that's the other part of the spiritual community is instead of just having the faith, you understand the whys. The why did this happen to me? What did I come here to do? Why is my life moving the way it's moving? And how do I get in flow with it? Right? Yep. Prayer, I think, is the same as, just saying chants out loud, doing the energy work, stuff like that. It's the same thing, right?
Would you agree though that prayer and manifesting is the same thing?
Hmm. I 100% do because you're either
Mhm.
writing it or you're saying it, right? Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Kim's putting a lot in the conversation on the
Let me
text.
see.
So
What
I'm
is
reading it, Kim.
I totally believe intuitives are what we're supposed to be in our natural state, especially women. Hell yeah. I hate to say it, but women have it because we have the mom's intuition. We're supposed to have that. And I have a whole spiel if you guys want to go down the rabbit hole on that one. Probably will get burned at the stake for that, but it's women in here. Let's talk about it. And Kim, crystals have been used for religious and royal ceremonies. Precious stones are more than just for being pretty to look at. Look at our rings, diamonds. It's a symbol. Our wedding rings, stuff like that, right? Diamonds are special. We talk about they use crystals and stones for ultrasound work. There's nothing scary about a rock, right?
Well, yeah, look at quartz watches, like a quartz watch.
Yeah, they
A
all
quartz, if
carry
you
energy.
slam it, it's gonna create a spark. I mean, there is energy in those rocks, which I mean, it sounds crazy, but people thought electricity was crazy, a long time ago. I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but it's here.
Yeah. Well, you can, what, is it with a potato, like the old science projects? You can get energy out of a
Yes.
potato.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that something that's been in the earth that we literally use daily and we don't question it, right? Why wouldn't it have energetic properties? I don't see why, and you use energy to see through the body. So if you're holding the same crystal as what they use for an ultrasound that emits frequency into your body, right? You're putting your frequency and mashing with that. It makes perfect sense to me that we would use them. It's scientific. There's a reason why people are geologists and stuff. Not just because they're pretty, but because of they were just pretty, there'd be no money in it. It's because they have actual properties to them and we use them. And day-to-day things. I mean, obviously things being pretty is a big
Bonus.
a big bonus, right? It's an industry. But where if the spiritual world and astrology is not true or it's a bunch of woo-woo, then why does everybody accept birthstones? We accept
Yeah.
birthstones. That's normal, right? Yeah. Or my kids need to go outside and burn off some energy. Where do you think that came from? You know, we say and we do things, or I had this dream last night, or I have this gut feeling. We say and do stuff all the time, and then we judge people for actually like doing something with it, right? So it's there. It's always been there. All that half the sayings that we say, we don't even know where they came from, but it comes from this line of work. Janet, did you have something to say? I seen you unmuted.
Um, I was looking for the chat. I was going to add something in there.
Oh,
Um, there's a podcast, but I can't figure out how to do it. Next Level Soul.
okay.
If you Google Next Level Soul Jesus, it's Rick Ferrari, and he's interviewing a very academic person that learned is it Aramaic to interpret Jesus's teachings. It's just really interesting, and it talks about the history of Jesus, and he's been studying it forever. And I learned tons. It well, I can't speak about it because I don't have the vocabulary, but it's worth doing. Next Level Soul Jesus, and it's just fascinating. And it speaks with what you're talking about because he talks about how the churches started and all the misinterpretations. Just they're endless, and how the future of religion is more spiritual and people and learning about like oh, I can't think of it now, like Jesus, like follow me really meant follow my teachings, not me, and just little things like that. It was just fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think the transformation of religion institutions, well, it's happening now.
Hmm.
They're closing. People are starting their little separate offshoots, and
Right.
it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. It is exciting to watch people come around and then I'm not gonna lie. I am one of those people where I'll be thinking something and then it'll come out into the public and I'll be like, see, told you. When there's
Yeah.
like actual some like evidence behind it, I'll be like, I was right. See, I'm not
Hmm.
crazy.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and it's true though. I wasn't sure how far down the rabbit hole we were gonna go with this today because I know it's a touchy subject. But that's where I was kind of getting at with it's all stemming from the same thing, right? That there was somebody interpreted these writings and they interpreted it the way that they wanted to because we all interpret things differently, right? And so we found this, it's there, this is how it was written, but if you're talking from a control aspect, and as far as religion goes, they started it to keep people under control, right? We didn't have policemen, we didn't have all that stuff way back when. This is how they used population control with marriage. This is how they controlled how, like spreading of disease, right? They used it for so many different things. And I had just told Kim too, I'm going to go off on a little side tangent before I bring it back around because that's what my ADHD brain does. But we were talking about marriage and we were talking about Kim, do you remember how I put this? It was about money. What did she say? Not only
Well, the when you're talking about the marriage thing, too, like if you think about it, you were just somebody's property at one point.
yeah.
And what I thought was interesting, referencing that Jordan Maxwell when he talks about the law, and he says it's kind of like a triangle, right? So you have the government here at the head of the triangle, and then there's a break with the triangle from the government and the husband. And there's also a break from the husband and the wife, but there's no break from the wife and the government. So it all has to do about ownership and rights. And really, up until recently, the recent decades or centuries, really, has it been about love. I mean, talking like the 1900s started. Um, Otherwise, I mean, you married because
Yeah, that's what I was
that's
gonna
who you
talk
were
about.
told to marry.
Well, it was for money. Isn't greed one of the sins? Greed. It's in there.
Seven deadly sins. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So we're talking about marriage, we're talking about greed. We're not supposed to be greedy. Then why did we marry off our daughters to get further ahead in society to make sure we had our dowries, to secure land, to secure money? There's no love
Rich
in there at
cycles.
all.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a
Yeah,
match.
Hmm.
for a lot of these rich, like land barons here in the United States, they would marry off their daughters to broke royalty over in Europe,
Hmm.
and because they had these giant dowries, and a lot of these guys would gamble off all over money and leave her with nothing.
Right. So how is it that we can have a sin that is that big and it goes back that far? And we are literally doing the epitome of that. You have to find a man to take care of you. You have to, marry into money. We still do that to this day. Find somebody to take care of you. Find somebody that has money, right? You want money, 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 money. If it's a sin, how can the church ask for money, 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 right? How can we marry off our women like that? Marry into money. Teach our kids that you need to marry into money, right? Money is, they say, the root of all evil, right? Again, going back to that, but yet it's the one thing that drives all of humanity. And so that kind of brings me back around to, if it's a sin and we have it in the church and they're asking for money, wouldn't they make it a sin to be greedy so that way you donate? So they can have the money, so they can have your 15, 20% or whatever it is right away as a plate is going around. I would think that that was interpreted completely different than what it was actually supposed to be. I think greed did not have to do with money. I think it was more so, um, again, just like being selfish, right? You don't want to be selfish. And if we're talking about it energetically, there's always this energetic exchange, whether it shows up in money or if it shows up in deeds or whatever, there's an energetic exchange with the universe. And so when we put something into motion, it tends to, however we send it off into the universe, negative or positive, it tends to come back because the universe recognizes that, right? And so way back when we have these energetics people that were maneuvering and doing all the stuff, right? We did have good and we did have bad. So I think that greed probably stemmed from people that were using energy to manifest not so great things, right? Where it has somewhere along the lines been deciphered and interpreted as monetary value, as the exchange of goods, as the exchange of whatever. And I always thought that marrying off our daughters, because I think that women had power way back, way, way back in history. Women had power. I think we're feared. I really do. I believe that. I think that because we are intuitive, because we're smart, right? Women live longer than men. Hate to say it, but it's true. We're smart. We may not have all the muscles in the world, but we can raise kids, right? We do. We're the backbone, essentially, of everything. And I really sound like a feminist right now. I'm like, yeah, let's do the things. But I think it's true because I think along the lines in history, our power has been taken away because we were freaking scary. We knew how to heal people. We knew how to bring people into the world. We know how to create life, right? Let's take their power away. We're scary individuals.
Well, I think too, religion has, look at it for a second. Like you look at Mother Mary. Okay, you have your mother, and then the other woman that they talk about, and well, now she's a whore. So you're either a mother or a whore.
Right.
It never said in there that, and I really do believe that Jesus, I don't think his name was Jesus, but I think there was a guy that was awake about knowing, hey, listen, there's a way to deal with this matrix that we're all sitting in. And he
Yeah.
probably did have a wife. And there probably was a woman that was very powerful, but because Rome ended up sticking their nose into everything and altering things, that all of a sudden now this woman was now a whore. And, you know, she was no good. And Jesus was just good enough to have her around. You know,
Right. Well,
kind
they
of
say
weird.
that Jesus wasn't intuitive,
Right.
that he was a channel, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Janet?
Uh, the podcast I mentioned addresses a lot of that about the hidden life of Jesus. All those years he wasn't mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I need to re-listen to it, but again, I highly recommend it. Next Level Soul. It's an interview. Yeah.
There's an actual book called The Hidden Life, The Hidden Years of Jesus.
Ooh, really?
And it
Okay.
goes, yeah, and what he did those years before I think it was age 32 when he started his preaching and things. And it talks about him going to visit, the Hindu, all these different people and getting all these different skills,
Yeah.
you know.
From my understanding, well, the Bible, I believe, is stories, and we, learn from the stories, but through all the different interpretations. I keep thinking of how we used to play telephone as kids.
Right.
If one
Yeah.
person would whisper something and you go around the circle, by the end it's totally different.
hmm
Yeah.
And then you throw one person in there that has an agenda, right? A different agenda, so they're going to switch the words
Right.
completely,
Or
right?
language barriers.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a big
Hmm.
one, the language barrier for sure. I have heard a lot of people talk about the language barriers.
Hmm.
Well,
And it
too,
makes,
if you notice the story of Jesus, there's also similar stories in different religions.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where there's a mother and there's a father that had a baby, and this baby is, grows up to be powerful, and it just has a different name, right? Different name,
Sure.
slightly different characters, but basically the same people.
Yeah. I wondered about all that too. It's a different interpretation. We all have our God, right? Or gods, whatever. Still at the core, it's the same thing. Prayer, right? Manifestation, putting energy out into the world. All of us do it in some way, shape, or form. It's all kind of the same, you know. And here's something really interesting that we're talking about marriage being a form of like population control and stuff like that, right? So here's the other part of that. When I was reading the book of Ra, it said that we were not supposed to be married. We are supposed to spread our love and light through connection with other people. Like when you first get into a relationship with somebody, you know that all the butterflies and oh my God, all of that, the attraction, we're supposed to go through that with multiple people. And so that's why people have a hard time staying monogamous because we're not supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be going out there making an impact, however that looks, right? Where I'm not saying to go out and like go in your whole phase, but this is what the book was talking about. And so that it opens up your intuition, it opens up this heart chakra, right? When you're having an energetic exchange with somebody else, and on that level, it's actually a transfer between two people energetically. And so you're kind of with your life force energy filling the other person's cup, and they're doing vice versa for you. And so that's why you get dopamine releases, right? If we're talking about science, you get the dopamine releases, you get all of these extra benefits that come along with it. Now, if we come back to religion, or the monks or stuff like that, abstinence, 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 abstinence. Ooh, I just threw my pen. I was really excited, apparently. But it's another way of suppression, I feel like. It's another way for us to not tap into our intuition, to heal other people, right? To become fully us and to be happy, right? Because if you're stuck with one person for the rest of your life, which great if you can be, hell yeah, I fully support that. If you're happy, go do it, right? Um, it's a different experience than having that energetic exchange with more than one person right? Because we all have something different to offer. We all have a different lesson to offer. We all have our own energy that maybe somebody else needs. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that this is what we need to do, but in the Book of Ra, where all of this kind of stemmed from, they talk about that. And it's not just about marriage, it is about the healing powers of not being abstinent or even just having a close relationship with somebody, right? And so therefore we can kind of see like don't cheat. Well, you're not supposed to have that energetic exchange then, right? So I don't know where that principle really came from or if it was overlooked. I doubt it was overlooked. I think there is something to that, right? And the more people you connect with on a deeper level, the more of a movement you can create as well.
Too, on a biological standpoint, I had seen a documentary on this about attraction and all that kind of stuff. And you're right, we're not necessarily meant to be monogamous, but on a biological standpoint, yes, you have to have that man in your life to go out and provide while you were stuck back at, the hut with a child until you got to be around 4 years old. And that's why they say like the 7 year itch, right? Because you start to kind of go, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to breed with this person again. But on a spiritual level, though, I will say this. I totally believe in that when you have sex with somebody, it's not just an exchange of DNA, it's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
And not only are you taking on their energy, you're taking on the energy of anybody else that they've slept with. So if you've got somebody with a lot of baggage, you're now taking on that baggage. So I do think it's something that people should be aware of
Mhm.
before they get in bed with somebody, that they're thinking about, not only like, could I catch a disease or could I possibly get pregnant from this person and be stuck having to deal with somebody I don't like very much for the rest of my life, but what kind of energy am I taking on from this person?
Yeah. I do think we have to be picky and choosy, right? Everybody should. If it goes against your morals, then no. Take a hike, right? Long jump off a short pier. But yeah, you're right. I
Uh,
agree.
I agree with Kim too. I've been taught, and that you like you said, you basically download their stuff, oversimplifying, and that it can take 7 years to clear that.
Yeah. You guys ever heard of if you're with somebody long enough, you start looking like them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. You pick up everything that is theirs and they do the same because I think um like your mannerisms start becoming the same and that makes you look a lot like somebody. You're sharing that DNA, right? Passing it back and forth. So as you get older, I could see where that stuff, I mean, comes from. Even with women, we all sync up. Like there's so much at play with it. But yeah, I used to get told, still to this day, it drives me nuts. That me and my ex-husband looked like we were brother and sister. And I was like, no, no, no. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. But now I look back because our mannerisms and everything were so much alike and we were together for so long. I can see it. I can see how we kind of did because I'll just watch videos and we're very much in tune, right? So I think that it takes a village. I think that probably stems from some of that.
Well,
You have a bunch of people around, but you're still like have your hunter-gatherer, you know?
did you know that when you get pregnant by somebody, that you carry their DNA in you? So the male actually makes the placenta, and his genetics and everything, like his health affects that.
Mhm.
And so it's really quite interesting that even though, like you think it's just, oh, it's a one-time thing. He's a sperm donor basically, right? And I know I have this child and I carry this child's DNA in me forever. No, you also carry his DNA as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do you
Well,
want to try? Oh, go ahead.
I'm married 41 years tomorrow, and when you were talking about looking alike, and man, I fight like hell for this stuff since I've become aware of it. Sharing illnesses, all kinds of stuff. It's like, okay, you got this, now I got that. And now that I'm aware of it and I have tools, that's not so much like that, but holy smokes, it was kind of scary.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, after so long, you become a unit. If you're sharing DNA, you kind of become literally like a unit, right? You become one identity. And so
Mm-hmm.
passing your sickness back and forth. I mean, even with men, when a woman is pregnant, they can get the symptoms of like the same as what the woman does. They gain weight, they get the munchies, all this stuff. It makes perfect sense that I mean, you literally start meshing together and becoming one unit. So the sympathy, whatever they want to call it, the parasympathetic nervous system can tap into their stuff too, and you start recognizing it and you can manifest that stuff in your body, or you're just passing stuff back and forth. But yeah, it's really cool how all of that works.
I can understand how a man's DNA ends up in you, but how the heck does a woman get hers in him?
We're
Do
all
you do
silent.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm following the one way, but
Mhm. I don't know. And maybe that's part of the reason,
Well,
like
I
if we're carrying all of it.
if you're kissing, if you're exchanging saliva, any of that kind of stuff, you're shedding
okay,
part of your DNA. So
okay.
in like intimate acts, like back before we had baby food, you chewed the food and you spit it in your kid's mouth. They were getting a part of your DNA. They were also getting a lot of your antibodies to different things, so their health was a lot stronger. Um, but yeah, I think definitely women are probably more affected than men.
Maybe we're transmuters. Like we can handle that. We can handle clearing that out of our system. Maybe they can't handle it. Again, we're supreme.
We all start out as female. You know that, right? We
Yeah.
all started out in the womb as female.
Yep,
Yep. It's really quite interesting.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is a little side note, doesn't really affect anything, but we're talking about religion.
Mhm.
My husband's parents, hardcore Catholic, hardcore. And I wasn't. And we were in this little village where we grew up. There's a UCC, which is pretty liberal, I guess you could say. Anyway, I had a priest and a minister at our wedding in 1984. That was almost unheard of. And I didn't appreciate it at the time, how out there that was. And then when my husband said, well, that cost my dad a lot of money, well, then I knew what was going on. But it's just all interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm looking forward to more light being shed on everything. More of the secrets coming out because there's more books that we're finding. There's more interpretations that we have coming out. I mean, the more they dig around in Egypt, the more they're going to find, right? There's a whole tomb underneath the paws that they're not letting anybody see. It's been discovered, but nobody can get in there. And apparently, according to folklore, they're saying that sometime soon it'll just open and it contains all of the scrolls to everything. And that's the reason why it's, being guarded so heavily, why nobody can get in there. But I'm excited to see where all of this takes us, the light that's getting shed on everything, and to people being more open-minded and more comfortable with spirituality, I guess, and being able to help heal themselves, people finding their own power again, really being able to find the faith in themselves to become who they are, that individuality. And I think we heal through sharing our own stories in a non, just being able to share, right? Without fear of judgment, things like that. I'm really excited to see if we can move past judgment and be in more of a form of acceptance and where that's going to take us. Because I think we can mishmash all of this together. It's not evil. I don't think anything is evil. I think all of it has its point. We all have to have something that we believe in, you know? I think it's different. Things are just different. And why wouldn't you be curious? I don't, that's just my king of clubs thinking. I'm curious all the time. Like, let me dive into all this stuff. I have no judgment for it. I just want to dig in and find answers, right? Yeah.
Well, I think it can be used for darkness too.
Okay.
I think anything can. I think it depends on what wolf you feed. I mean, we've all heard that story about, having two wolves inside of you, and you've got a light wolf and a dark wolf, and the one that you feed the most is going to be the one that takes over. But
Here's that story right here.
even with astrology, when you see that these people hear about these people in power that use it, they're not always using it for good. Right? They're using it to make a play, where they're going to solely benefit, not caring about how it's going to affect other people. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's something that should be feared. I think that it's something that um, it should definitely be investigated and see both sides of the spectrum. But obviously, where your own heart is at.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that wolf story, like I just showed you guys, the moon card and tarot, that's it. It's which one are you going to feed? That's what that's talking about. Both sides, light or dark. And that's what that moon is talking about too, light or dark. Isn't that interesting? So there it
It
is,
is.
right in the tarots. Oh, yep. And we were talking about following the stars and stuff like that. We literally have the star card that is in the deck too. Look up to the stars, look up for direction, right? Yeah, there's so much embedded in this that we could probably talk for days and hours just trying to discover what's what. But it is a really interesting conversation. And I think I'll end it with nothing that is said on here is meant to be in any way, shape, or form a form of judgment, right? It's curiosity, asking questions, getting different point of views, and being open to questions. It's about mind expansion, and today religion just happened to be one of them through the tarot. So, yeah, it was good. It was real good. I think we covered a lot of ground with it, and I wrote it down, all the stuff on here, the next level soul and the hidden years of Jesus. I'm going to check into those because I think they're going to be really great. And I like to be educated in all of the different areas. And I will say that religion is probably one of the ones I am least educated in because my family was not religious. And I had to come up with my own stuff my entire life. We did not talk about death. We didn't talk about any of that. It was more so, yeah, you can pray. There's a God, right? I believe there's something, and that was about the extent of it. So anything that I have discovered has been on my own or through things like this, right? And being able to share my viewpoint and listening to others. So yeah, I'm gonna dig into that and maybe sometime in the future we can talk a little bit more about what we are finding out in the correlations because I love it.
Well, you weren't raised with the guilt then
No, I didn't.
of
I think it is
from
guilt.
the church. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I got to escape that. But I did, it wasn't the guilt, but I did have my years of a lot of questions. And I think everybody has this anyways, but I had no faith. I was just out there willy-nilly, like what really happens to us? Is any of this crap real, right? And I didn't have anybody to turn to or talk about it either. So it kind of ties in with either way you're quiet, you know. I think there's two ends of the sword with that. Because I always thought when I was younger, man, it would be nice to know about this stuff. So I did have some sort of faith. So I understood it. So I had a direction and I didn't question everything. Now I realize it's kind of a gift. I mean, it still bites me in the ass because I'm too curious, right? But, I guess it's each has its own burden and gift with it. So maybe that's why for me,
And
I'm able to just be like, I'm just going to go out and do the things. I don't care, right? And there's a lot of people way more reserved, and I'm just like, I'm just going to do it. Whether I don't care what so and so says. But I could see where you're raised in that environment all the time where you really think twice about what you're doing. So,
in
yeah,
college, I met my first atheist, and I found myself feeling sorry for her because
yeah,
I thought, how does she deal with death?
right.
Someone dies. What do you think happens? I mean, at least my faith gave me something to believe in.
Right.
And I actually felt sorry because, you know, so
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from.
I
Yeah.
think too, Marie, maybe you might agree, is that what I found, a few of my friends that have become atheists, they were they were ex-Catholics that had a lot of questions that weren't answered. And
Mhm.
so they turned their back completely.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. But yeah, I think it is hard. I think when you just think about, oh, when you die, you're just, that's it. It's just, you're into the
Mhm.
black.
Yeah.
Um, that sounds terrifying.
It is, and that's what my brain goes to, that you can't, like, I'm the type of person where it's like, okay, I can't control this, right? So I can't control it. There is no definite answer. It's coming, whether you want to or not. And so that would set me off into a panic attack the way it was, right? I can't control it, it's happening. And then the other part of it is my brain can go to a point, to a place so deep where it literally can put me in a place of like trying to wrap my head around the non-existence. Like when I was talking about in the beginning of the show, where it's like, okay, something is always contained in something else. How can that be? Right? That's where my brain kind of goes with the whole death thing. And because I didn't have any faith instilled in me or anything to believe, it would make me feel like, oh God, where are we actually going to go? I didn't have any of that background. So yeah, and I could see where people would completely turn their backs on it too, because it's scary. Sometimes it's easier to believe in nothing, and sometimes it's easier to just not have anything to do with any of it, right? Because it's the basis of being a human is knowing we're gonna leave this planet. We come in with that and we go out with that fear, right? It's the one thing that we don't know. We know sure as shit that we're coming into the world, right? There's scientific evidence of how we get here. There's no scientific evidence or anything of what happens to us when we leave. Nothing other than them
Well,
saying
actually,
that we
they're starting to be, though. They're starting to be.
ring. I don't think they'll ever completely figure it out, because if they do, we're
No.
not going to have any reason to be like come back down here and learn a lesson, right? Which is a whole nother conversation that I have
Right.
that.
The next rabbit hole.
We could probably make 20 rabbit holes off of one conversation, because I'm like,
Right?
ooh, I gotta go. We could talk about this. And the cycle of evolution that humans have had, for based upon all the numerous things that I have read and how it all ties together and everybody's channeling together the same things. It's incredible. Like us saying we came from monkeys, there's some scientific evidence that's saying that we did, but there's a reason why and how we evolved. Okay. Anyways. But yeah. So thank you all for joining me today, and I am going to do some research. If you all want to do a little bit of research and see what we come up with, we can talk about it more in the group, or we can come back on here and talk about it some more, because I think this is a topic that a lot of people are curious about, but don't say anything. And I think it's good to have a different perspective and a little bit more faith that no matter what religion you're from or what background or anything like that, we all have the same hope. And I speak for most of us, want to be a good person, right? Have a good life. And that's what all this is about. Every bit of it. Community, good life, be a good person. So, yeah.
When's my person coming, Kayla?
Oh my God. I don't know.
I-
I don't remember.
I'm going to ask you every time. When am I meeting my person?
I'll have to have a little set of cards next to me and be like, okay, you're this right now. Oh my gosh. I love it. Oh, well, all right, ladies.
I have
Oh,
one
good.
question for you.
Yeah.
When you do your numerology thing,
Mhm.
does it show when a person dies? I don't want to know, but I'm just curious. Does it show? It does.
So there's stipulations around it, right? I'll sum it up really quick. We all have exit points that we can choose to take. And
Yes.
so those are in there. I can see them kind of, right? It makes a lot more sense and we can see it a lot better if somebody is terminally ill or in retrospect.
Mhm.
This is why, right? Now, if you're using numerology for forensics, for instance, you can see that when the person went missing, you can see what was going on in the day, stuff like that. And you can see the potential for death, right? John Benet Ramsey's stuff. I looked into hers. You can see it plain as day. You can see who did it because it's his card is sitting right there, right? So a lot of times it's more so in retrospect that you can see it, or you can see the possibility of. It's not going to predict unless you're terminally ill. It's pretty accurate on that. Like you got 2 days, right? Something like that. And even then it can be wrong. But yeah, you can see the possibility and why, right? You can see kind of the why that is happening too and the environment around it. It's really, really interesting. And I wish I had more time to do case studies around it because you guys could see it and it's so cool. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Will it allow you to see your own?
Uh, yeah, I mean it's set your chart is set. I mean, I actually went through a whole little stint where I didn't look at my chart at all because I kept seeing stuff in there and I was like,
Mhm.
I'm not looking anymore because I'm terrified now, right? But I didn't, I'm still here, right? We're all still, me and my family, we're all still here. So I think that, yeah, you can recognize exit points. However, I do feel that we are not supposed to know when we go, right? Us
Mhm.
personally, we're not supposed to know. So I don't think we are going, like, I don't think I would recognize my own death in my own chart. Somebody else may, but I don't think I'm going to see it in my own. Because if I knew, it would, what would life be then? You
Change
know?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it would change everything. I'd live in fear every day. I mean, it might open up my eyes and be like, okay, I'm gonna go just blow my money and have a good time, right? But at the
So,
same time,
so I can say to you, how many years do I have left to find my special person?
and I would tell you, I don't know. Oh, yeah. There it's so embedded where sometimes I don't see somebody like if I'm doing a case study, for instance, I don't see somebody's death in their yearly chart or their life chart. I see it in a week or a day. And so there's so many different places that you can look to see what was happening or going on. Like it takes some investigative work, even with the numbers, to be like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, this is what's happening. I need some birth dates. I need like all these different things. And I can like lay out the whole story. But yeah, I won't be able to tell you when unless I get a good intuitive hit of like, hey, Marie, this week.
And I'm going to hold you to
Okay.
it.
Oh, I love it. It's so great.
Sorry,
Oh,
people.
oh my gosh. Yeah. If I could say like all of those different things of when, where, why, how, I would let everybody know and be like, all right, you need to go shave your legs on Tuesday of next week, right? We need to be ready. It'd be great. But all right, I'm going to jump off and finish doing my office stuff. So I have like 2 things left to do and I'm done. I'm good to go. I'm really excited.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do that and I will be doing forecasting over in the regular group live. So if in an hour, so if you guys want to come over there, I'll be over there talking about the month. So all right.
Okay.
I'll talk to
See
you
ya.
all later. Bye.
Bye.